Hi there everybody, it's Don Riddle with another review for Riddle's Reviews, and this time I have a great game I just got in the mail about a week ago from a Kickstarter that I supported near a year ago, but it's finally come, and this is the game. Well, actually this is the game. It's called Pack of Heroes, and look how tiny this box is. It's just a little teeny tiny box. And I thought it was going to be a lot bigger, but there is a lot of game in this little box. And so one of the comments I got from my first review was that I didn't show enough of the game so that people that didn't know it could understand it. And especially, I'm going to do that because especially with this one, since it's a Kickstarter that's just come out, it hasn't even hit the stores yet as far as I know, you're going to want to see what's inside this box. So give me a second to set it up and I'll show you what's in here and a little bit about how to play this game called Pack of Heroes. So here is the aforementioned game box for Pack of Heroes, and if you look, let's see if we can get this to focus on this. Forgive some of my shakiness. This is the first time I've recorded video on my iPhone, and so you see the game designed by Phil Walker Harding, and he's done a good job for Adventureland Games. That's the name of the publisher. So you've got a really vibrant, colorful box here that really does tell you what you can kind of expect from the game. This kind of silly comic book style dueling that's inside here. So let's take the cover off there, and then we're going to look. And so the first thing we see is a little book that has the rules. And then we have, what's this here? This is a little comic book that gives you a little bit of background on the different heroes, and I won't spoil too much of what's in here so that when you get the game you can kind of have fun reading that yourself. It's just a little bonus that was unlocked during the Kickstarter campaign, and I think comes with every game now. This is a kind of a supplement to the rule book. It's a superhero almanac, and this tells you special rules for all the different character abilities, and I so love this book because every time I've had a question about one of the cards in the game and I couldn't answer that question from the rule book, it was in here. Every time it's in here. They did a fantastic job of covering all the bases with that almanac. I'm so glad that that is included in the game. So what we got here is we have some tokens. These are for hit point counters, wound counters, and then we have these purple octagonal counters. These are for stuns. They're stun markers because you can get stunned. And so if I flip this over so we can get this out, I want to show you such a small little game, but this is really a quality game box, and it even has this beautiful insert, and it's even colored red. It's not just some basic insert that they threw in there. It really is specific to the game and the game's colors. The box is sturdy and holds everything really well, as you saw, and some stuff on the back about there. It's just a really nicely made game box, and for such a small game, it's really great that they spend so much time on that. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to put those aside for a second here so I can show you first what else comes in this game. So we've got two decks of power cards, a red deck and a blue deck, and those are the backs, and on the fronts we have red, green, and blue. Three of each. They're identical. The blue is the interstellar cards, green is molecular, red is nuclear. That doesn't really come into play during the game. It's just the colors that are necessary, but it just adds a little more theme into the play. And so then we have the blue deck that's identical, three of each color for the two players. It's a two-player only game. We have a couple of really great reference cards that explain the turn sequence, like what you have to do in what order, a little bit about the heroes. This is mostly stuff you're going to care about for drafting, but sometimes it matters. Movement, explaining the different symbols for movement and how they work, and then on the back they have some abilities, some of the abilities different that the heroes can have explained on the back. There's two of those, one for each player. And then we have the teams. And we have each team has its team card. That's Knights of the Five Realms, and then it has 5 heroes that are part of that team. Every team is 5 heroes, and you have one leader, which is denoted by having a gold hit point box. So that's not only its hit points, 6, but it's also gold, showing you that Big Walt is the leader of the Knights of the Five Realms. And then there's 2 silver and 2 bronze heroes, and that's in each deck. And what's neat is that you can play this game pitting these teams against each other, and one person can take one team, one person takes another team, or you can draft, and they have different rules for drafting, and you can, as long as you have one hero, 2 of the backup, I forget the name of it, it says here the backup guy is called the fighter, and 2 sidekicks, those are the bronze guys for your team, and so you and your friend can just draft teams together. So you get 8 teams, holy moly, 8, so 40 cards. So before I go into the gameplay and explaining a little bit about how the game works, I want to point out my one gripe I'm going to say on this video, because I love this game and I'm going to talk highly about it, but my one gripe is this beautiful, beautiful team card. And every team has one. Here's one for the Elementines. Beautiful. They're all gorgeous. The problem is that the heroes themselves don't have that on the back. What they have instead is an origin story, a little bit about it, and that's really cool to have, but I kind of wish they had put all that into the almanac, made that a little thicker, and put the team backs on there. Especially because on the first turn you select secretly, supposedly, your starting hero, and it would have just been easier to do that, but I guess not if you're drafting teams. So what I say usually is that you can just kind of put your starter hero kind of under your team card if you're putting it down before your other player does. But I don't know, I just kind of wish that all the heroes had that on the back, because it's just so nice. Anywho, I'm going to set this up for a 2-player game and tell you a little bit about how it plays. So here's the setup for a 2-player game. Of course, there are only 2-player games of Pack of Heroes. You have the red player over here, and he's playing with the Guild of Ghouls. He's got his starting hero over here. And then this guy over here, the blue team, is playing the Galactonauts, which is kind of an alien faction. And in between, so they've both selected their starting heroes already, and the first player is going to be red, and so red will only start with 1 power card in their hand. I'll explain how those are used in a second. Blue starts with 2 since they're going second. And in between the 2 starting heroes is a space. There's a space here, 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 here. So there's 9. It's a 3x3 grid between the 2 players. We have the players' power pile, their deck there, and then it's the reference card, and this is their discard pile, and they start with one of their power cards in their discard pile. It helps to denote the base level. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to attack the other player and knock out their heroes. If you can knock out all their heroes, you win the game. And so there's 5 heroes each team, so you got to get rid of all 5. Or you can occupy all 3 spots on their base row with 3 of your heroes. If you can do that, you also can win. So let's move over here, take a little closer look at my hero that I'm starting with, this the Magnificent Mancini. I don't know if I can get this to focus. Up here he has his hit points, and then he has his movement over here, and then he's got an ability on the bottom here, and this is an attack ability. It's a range attack that hits for 1. So regular force attacks, you have to be next to the person to hit them. You could be there, you could be there, you could even be behind them as long as you're adjacent. And adjacency in this game is only orthogonal, not diagonal. But a range attack can hit anybody, anywhere in any of the 9 squares. So those are pretty strong. And over here it says the cost of it. Now this is unlike other games. You see a green symbol and a blue symbol. This doesn't mean that you have to come up with both. It means you have to come up with one or the other. So if I look at my 1 power card, I have a blue. So I can use it. And what I would do, is I would take my turn in this sequence here that's explained on my reference card. First, there's movement. So if I have any heroes, I can move them. So let's say I decide to move him here. He doesn't need to go next to the opponent because he's got that range attack. So I'm going to move him out of the way, in fact, as much as I can. Of course, she has a movement of 2, so I can't really get too far away from her. But I'm going to move over here, and then let's see, what's step 2? Main action. Now for my main action, I can do one of 2 things. I can trigger the ability by paying for it of one of my heroes that's existing on the board, or I can play one of my other heroes, my other 4 heroes, out onto the board. And so there's no other additional cost. The only cost is actually using up your main action to do this. And so let's say I wanted to do that. Let's say I wanted to put this guy down. He's my leader, denoted by the gold there. If I were to do that, I'm not going to do it, but let's say I did, I wanted to put this guy out. I first would have to put him somewhere in my base row. I can't put him there because somebody's already there, so I'd have to put him in one of these 2 spots. If all 3 of my spots were occupied, I could not do this. I could not put a new guy out because I can't put him anywhere else. I'd have to move one of those guys out so that I could get him down. These yellow bursts, and you saw it's on the first one, these yellow bursts are kind of comes into play abilities. They happen as soon as you play them out. This happens, and it happens just at once, and that's it. And so he would have this effect of shocking entrance that stuns any enemy, and so I could just put a stun marker on Luna if I wanted to do that. Now, usually you don't want to play heroes that have these appearance abilities. I think they call them arrival abilities. What does the reference card say? Yeah, arrival powers. You don't want to play those as your first guy because they won't happen in that case. But the thing is with the Guild of Ghouls is every single hero in that team has a rival power, so there's no way to get around it. And the thing about Mancini is he's kind of an exception to the rule where his arrival power is actually something that's always on anyway, so you don't have to, so it's going to happen anyway even though I don't trigger it at the beginning. He's kind of unique that way. So let's say I didn't do that. I didn't put a new hero into play. I decided to trigger the Magnificent Mancini's ability. And so I spent my blue power card by discarding it into my discard pile, and I say, okay, boom, I'm going to hit this guy for 1. And that's what'll happen. So I do that. And I forgot to take out some hit point markers, so give me a second here. So I can show you, I'll just go boom, 1. Okay? So I've done that. I've hit Luna Sparks for 1, and then I take the next step of my turn. So that was my main action. Then I can unstun. So if any of my heroes were stunned, I can now take the stun marker off, and there are none, so I can skip that. And then I draw power. I draw 1 new power card from my power deck. So let's see what I got. Oh, I got another blue. So I can do that again next turn if I want to. So I'll just put that secret with my hand. Now your heroes are called your reserve that you haven't played yet, and those are open information, and so is your discard. In fact, the rule book suggests you splay them for your opponent, and actually I find that is very helpful to have the discard pile splayed so that you can kind of see what's possible. If an opponent has a hero that has ability that uses green mana or green power only, and they have all their green power cards in their discard pile, all 3 of them, then you know they can't do that. So it's important information. So let's go over to Luna Sparks' turn. Now Luna Sparks, I'm just going to turn it so we can see it, has an ability of to move 2. So if she wanted to, she could actually get right up in Mancini's face and go 1, 2. But the funny thing is I didn't do this on purpose, but her ability is also a range ability, so she doesn't need to be up on her opponent either. She also has what's called a constant ability, this gray with, I don't know if you can see it, it's got a little infinity symbol here. This is called Chain of Command. It says adjacent teammates force attack +1. So any teammate that she has that has force attack, and let's do that as her turn this time, we'll put out one of the force attack. We'll put out Professor Parsec as her main action. She's not going to move. In fact, she's going to move over here maybe. And then she's going to put Professor Parsec out. Professor Parsec has an arrival ability that can look at the opponent's hand and discard one. So when he does that, he would have forced this out of my hand because I only had the one. He can't discard the heroes. They're not really in my hand. They're in my reserve. This was the only thing in my hand was this power card. So he got rid of that. And then now he's just around. And now on future turns I can move him and I can use his attack, which is a force attack, so it's basically a melee attack where I have to be right up next to the person. He has a constant ability too that says you can draw 2 power and put them back. Now that's a perfect example of an ability that draw 2 power and put back. Does that mean that I can take one of them, or do I have to put them back in the same order? Can I put them back on the bottom? It doesn't say here, but it does say in the manual exactly what that means, and so that was great. So I know that it means that you just draw 2 and look at them, if I can get these 2, and then put them back in the same order. But see, now I have some information about what's coming up, so I can plan my turn a little better. And then I'm gonna so that was my main action, unstun, so nobody's stunned, and then draw power, so I will draw that one. I knew what I was drawing because I already had looked at that, and now I have 4 cards. No, whoop, that is the deck. This is my hand over here. So now I have 3 cards in my hand. That's the maximum number of power cards that I can have in my hand. If I were to draw another, I would have to then, I would draw it, and then I would have to choose one of these to discard. I could also choose at the end of my turn, I can also choose to not draw a power card. Now, the only time you'd really want to do that is when you have the exact 3 that you need, and you don't want to waste any of the power cards that are in your deck, because you might need them as well. But if you had 3 cards, even if they were exactly what you needed, if everything else you needed was now in your discard, you might still want to draw that and just instantly discard it to get through your deck faster. So that's something you can do to kind of manage your strategy. So I'm going to move ahead a little bit, and let's pretend that Luna Sparks has 3 damage on her before the start of this turn. So now it's the start of my turn. I can do movement, and I won't. I'm just going to leave him here, and I'm going to move right to the main action, which is to use for 1. Let's say I still had a blue card in my hand, and I discarded it, and I used it to hit Luna. The reason I'm doing this is I want to show you something, a little facet of the game. If I put enough wounds onto one of these heroes that they either are at half life, half of their total life, so if they were at 6, now they're down to 3, or in the case of, they round it down when it's an odd number. So this is 7, so I had to do 4 damage to do what's called half wound the hero. When you half wound a hero, it becomes stunned. So what that means is then on the opponent's turn, they won't be able to do anything at all with this hero. They can't move it, they can't use its abilities, they can't even access the constant ability. So this constant ability that gives adjacent teammates +1, let's say that Mancini was here and the opponent wanted to use Parsec here to hit this hero for 2 because of this +1 from here. Because Luna Sparks is now stunned, this will still only hit for 1. That constant ability at the bottom is turned off. Same thing, if Parsec was stunned, you wouldn't be able to use that ability to look at the top 2 cards. So then, the opponent would use their ability of whatever else, or put a new hero out. So we'd remove that stun marker in the 3rd step of the turn, and then the 4th step, draw a new power card, and then complete the turn. There are other ways that your heroes can become stunned. There are arrival abilities. One of these cards has an arrival ability that will stun an enemy, that one time when it comes into play. The rules about stun are too that after it comes off, it's not going to just automatically come back on every turn just because Luna stays half wounded. It only happens that first time when it first happens. After that, it will only happen again if Luna becomes healed, goes back up so that she isn't half wounded, and then becomes half wounded again. Then she'll get stunned again. but otherwise she's good to go now, and she can continue doing things until one of my heroes would finish her off. So you keep going back and forth doing that. The one thing I didn't really explain is movement. There's two basic types. There's this little cross symbol. I don't know if you can see that on some, and then here's one. There's this little fly symbol, it's called. I don't know, it's like a double arrow that's curved over here over the two, and that basically means normally for this character to get to this spot it would take 1, 2, 3, 4 movement, because even though that's one of my own heroes I still can't go through them, but because Darkbite can fly he can actually go 1, 2, and so suddenly he's over here and he can go through. He can fly over enemy opponent heroes as well, and so that's a very useful ability to be able to fly, useful movement ability. So there's a lot of other unique abilities. Each team has its own feel. Some focus on stunning, some focus on damaging, some focus on managing the power deck. There's 8 teams, so there is a lot of variety in the gameplay. And it's amazing for a game that's so small. A little 3x3 grid here. You've got 5 heroes to start. I'd say games, it says on the box 20 minutes. I say that's pretty good. 20 minutes to a half an hour depending on the teams that you select and the skill of the players. But this is a devious little game. Most of the information you have is open. What's in your discard pile, what's in reserve, the abilities of the heroes in reserve. It's mostly open except for the power cards in your hand, and it's mostly non-random except for that draw of the power cards, and that can be a big deal, what cards you get as far as power cards. But most of the game is really not random. It's really planning your strategy well and trying to fool your opponents into doing things that are less optimal for them and taking advantage of that. So I'm going to turn the camera around and give you some final thoughts on this. So there you have it. That's my review of Pack of Heroes by Adventureland Games. It's a great game. Love it so much in this little box. And it's a great box. So much in here. It's a fantastic game. It's fun. It's very diverse because, again, after you've played with the 8 teams against, one against each other, you can go ahead and draft your favorite heroes from the different teams against each other and see how that goes. So I think this is a great couples game because there's just a lot of variety in there, and it's very strategic. It's a very very strategic game. For such a short game, you're going to really make some crucial decisions, and it's a lot of fun too. The artwork on it is great. Fun comic art, doesn't take itself too seriously, but isn't goofy or childish either. It's got a somewhat mature theme without being violent or sexy or gory or anything like that. It's really just hits the mark right on the head for what it needs to be. And I highly recommend Pack of Heroes by Adventureland Games. Thanks for watching. Tell me any comments you have about this review, about reviews you'd like to see, about things I should change about how I review a game. Sorry for the shaky camera. This is my first time using an iPhone. Last time I did my webcam, and the video quality wasn't so good, so we'll see how this comes out. Thanks again. So I'm back. I was packing the game away, and I realized that I never told you what this extra stack of cards was about. I pulled it aside, never told you what it is. What these are weapon cards, and so what's nice about these is they all have the nice back that I wish all the other hero cards did, but oh well. And so what these are weapon cards, and this is for advanced play. So after you've got a hang of the game and you want to spice it up a little bit, there's all these cool weapons: Doomsday Disc, Stun Phaser, Hyper Gateway, Multi-Use Belt, Battle Van. All these fun things that you can, each person will select one, you can draft them, you can get them randomly at the start of the game. They all have crazy strong abilities that you'll be able to use once during the game to give you a little leg up, but of course your opponent will also have their own unique weapon that they will be able to use for a big move at some point during the game. And so this is just yet another thing to add variety to the gameplay, to what is already a very diverse game. And it comes with, I don't know, like 13 of these weapons, so you're gonna play these a lot before you get tired of them too. So just another reason to pick yourself up a pack of heroes.